Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pokonjre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday, from Monday to Sunday, it's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Between the Headlines. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm hosting the Director General of the EPA, Dr. Emmanuel Yarkpawolo. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe, and let me welcome Dr. Emmanuel Yarkpawolo. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Dennis, and good evening to you and all of your listeners. We are happy to share the EPA. What is the EPA, the work of the EPA? And since we got appointed, what are some of the reform we are carrying at the EPA? We are happy to discuss those and other issues tonight. We say thank you for all you do for Liberia.
Thank you very much. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. If you have not already done so, please share the show, invite someone, and let's talk about the EPA. What is it? Why is it important? I mean, where does it come from? It's relatively new, but Dr. Yarkpawolo has been newly appointed, and that's a turning position. Dr. Yarkpawolo, let me even start with your appointment. You ran as a bystander bearer on the LPP ticket. That did not, you didn't win, and here you are in the government. I mean, how is LPP? How is your standard bearer? And how is the process getting you to the EPA? Is that a thank you job for supporting?
I think let me say it this way, and of course, I bring you greetings from His Excellency Joseph Boakai, who is the president of Liberia, who eventually appointed me, and also Council Teonse Gonglo, who is one of our leaders in the country, very supportive of our work at the EPA. The LPP supported Joseph Boakai, the Unity Party, based on transformation, based on alignment of policies in terms of political ideology. So we ran a campaign, and after that, of course, the Unity Party, headed by Ambassador Joseph Boakai, won the election. So he constituted few people, were about 8, to write the transitional policy. I participated in that process, and after that, he constituted 20 persons on the incoming government side of the Joint Presidential Transition Committee. His Excellency, the President-elect at the time, also appointed me to be part of that. And we went through that process. It got over. And a lot of things happened in between, but eventually he appointed me as acting executive director for the Environmental Protection Agency. And after my appointment, I took office in about 3 weeks. It was challenged by Professor Wilson Tappet at the Supreme Court, claiming that he had tenureship at the EPA. And so my appointment as acting director was wrongful. So the Supreme Court then placed a stay order on me. So almost 2 months I didn't work at the EPA while the court looked into the matter. At the end of the case, the court found out that Prof. Tappet's appointment was not as a tenure position because the criteria set up in the law to gain a tenure position, he did not convince the court that he met with all of the criteria during his appointment. He was just appointed as the law of the EPA state the policy council to do vetting. That did not take place. So the court restored me as the acting executive director. Then His Excellency, trying to follow the law, always to the letter, he appointed the policy council. And I suggested myself to the policy council. I did write an application letter to the policy council, submitted my application and my CV to the policy council. Policy council went through a recruitment process, and then they I scored like 88 on the interview and what was happening, the scorecard. So at the end, the President Council submitted 3 names, including my name, to His Excellency President Boakai. I'm grateful that all of the 3 names, the President appointed me as Executive Director for the EPA properly, and that gave me 7-year tenure at the EPA. So that's the whole process that we went through.
Thank you. Congratulations. And you just preempted my question. I was going to ask what has been done to avoid recurrence of what Mr. Tappet went through, and you said he constituted that council, and now you've been appointed.
Yes.
So there was, even before you got there was a lot of noise. Tell me, what you inherited at the EPA in terms of structure, in terms of money, whatever you inherited, and how was that? How did you find out, or how was that assessment made to see what you got there?
So, the JPTT, that's the Joint Presidential Transition Committee, and transition each of these ministries and government agencies, and so there was report rating. So there's a report rating from the JPTT in terms of the institutional structure of the EPA, recommendation of the EPA. The EPA has several other accounts. Most of the accounts are project account. Project account is that, take for instance, the Global Environment Facility, say, is supporting the Global Climate Fund is supporting some money to be able to build a coastal defense for West Point. That's a whole project called the MMCRP. That project has an account. So those are all EPA accounts, but they're not like real EPA accounts because those are money specific for a purpose, like the UNDP and other people are implementing. So they have those accounts. They are called project accounts. There are a number of those. But the main operational account of the EPA is an account that is associated with EcoBank. Is the main place where EPA, where money is sent, where money is withdrawn from to pay salary, to all do that, is that account. I think if my memory can serve me right, a little over $17,000 was in that account from the JPTT report in terms of money inside that account. Little over 17,000. I don't know the actual figure now, but clearly little over 17,000. As I speak to you today, that account, it has little over $250,000 because we have been able to put in a lot of structure in place to eliminate wasteful spending at the EPA. And we are stand down on corruption at the EPA. And so the small money we're raising is able to be saved for you to do the kind of work that we're doing at the EPA. So the JPTT also report also recommended that the EPA be audited. So at the time, Minister Kamara was still Minister proper. Early on, I met him to say we want to, according to the report, the EPA need to be audited. So, but I'm not the financial expert. You're the finance minister. How do we go about auditing the EPA? He told me that the best way to start, the one that is faster, is the internal auditing agency. You start with them, they do some audit. So if the gravity of the issue is serious, before you lift them to the GSC, because the GSC is pretty occupied with that, but they do the internal part first. From there, if we need to go further. So since then, we have written the internal auditing agency, but again, of course, the court case drag all of that. When we came back, we pick up that that letter is before the internal auditor. I'm told by some of the people in the EPA, because we have a small unit of the internal auditing agency at the EPA. They say we are on the list. We are on the list. They'll be getting down to the EPA very soon to come and start our audit. As when the last audit started, they say in June 2019. That's the time the last audit the EPA audited. So we're taking that audit from that point until the time that I took over or the date that Prof. Tape left. We're going to do financial audit, system audit, human resource audit, all kinds of audit. We're going to do it there. So, in other words, we're trying to implement every recommendation from the JPTT report at the EPA. The conflict, I think the conflict there was mainly upon Prof. Tape and trying to stay there after his tenure was over as of January 22nd during inauguration day. So some of the workers felt that he needed not to be there because according to the Presidential Commission, that as of January 12th, January 22nd, at midday when the president is sworn in the office, all non-tenure position would have been deemed to resign. And Prof. Tape was still going back to office, still functioning. So some of the workers felt agitated and they started to protest. Those are some of the conflicts that were between him and the workers, which of course we're now a part of. Um, you know, before even I went, the very first time I went to that EPA to really go in that office, that entire building was the time I was appointed. Of course, I went and declared my assets, made my assets public, had a press statement, and all of that before I went to that office.
So in terms of size, I mean, what is the size? How many employees are there?
The EPA employees, I think the workforce stand little over 240 at the moment. Again, don't have the exact figure in my head right now, but clearly it's between 240 and 250. That's the size of the EPA workforce. In terms of those who work in the counties, those who work in the building itself, in the new building, the main building, that the workforce of the EPA. And we have been carrying on a lot of structural reform, shifting positions, making sure that people are in areas that meet their qualifications, making some promotion there. And so we're doing a lot of, and I'll have some time to be able to speak more about what are some of the structure we have put in the EPA and how can the public have confidence in the work of the EPA, or in fact, what is the EPA in the first place? Yes.
And what is informing that, those moves of a restructuring? What is informing that?
Oh, yes. Again, from the JPTT report, we got some data. After that, also, there are institutional memories. One thing we did at the EPA was, I never worked with the EPA before. I'm extremely qualified to lead an institution. My PhD is in environmental science. I have a master's degree in environmental science. Done a lot of publication in the field. I've been a professor in the field before, and I work with a lot of institutions administratively. So I get all the qualification to lead, but I have not worked in that institution before prior to my going there. So I didn't know the institution well. What I did was today, when you get to the EPA, you have two boxes. One is labor grievance box, the other one is innovation box. We encourage the workers to be able to speak through the boxes. You can only put in a paper, only my secretary can take it up every Friday. We told the workers, you don't have to write your name. Get anything that you're not satisfied with, call that a grievance. How you want to improve the EPA, call that innovation. So we got a lot of data from that box. The workers started to speak. When five or more employees are saying the same thing, it requires attention. It's not an isolated case. When you see 5 or 10 or more people, even writing about somebody, that this person, do this, do this. We left everybody in place. We didn't really touch anybody. But we wanted to see the level of competency and their productivity. So we'll gather some data from there. And sometimes we'll give a specific example, assignment or task to this person. Please do this and we'll monitor it. If we're not living up to it, we have discussion. I think we need to do some switching here, because we want productivity. So we're not firing you, you haven't done anything, but at least you can gain the other role and the other role can. So that's how we've been doing it, speaking with people in the institution, but a lot of data from those boxes that we set up, even the financial information of the EPA. And we open the finances of the EPA, Dennis, on every Monday at 9 o'clock. We have meeting. The EPA finances are exposed to all of the senior management team because the senior management team is the higher decision making body of the EPA. What we do is that the controller make financial report, weekly expenditure, and weekly bank balances. There, and I recall this particular idea at the time we were at the court. The person who introduced it when I came, I said, "This is great." It's my deputy. My deputy is Dua Bole. Dua Bole has been doing well. We've been working together. He was appointed as a deputy here, along with all of the senior management staff. We're working there very well together.
Thank you. Let's now go to the EPA. The EPA is relatively new, even though the idea of regulating, things in the environment is not new. So when I was reading about a few things, it said the EPA is the principal authority for implementing the national environmental policy and sustainable management law for the protection of the natural resources of Liberia. EPA's major area of focus include formulation of a national environment policy, the drafting of a comprehensive framework for environmental protection and natural resources management law. That is a lot of big book. How do you explain to my uncle in Satan what the EPA is about?
So the EPA work is very important, if not one of the most important work in the entire country. When we use resources, take for instance, when companies mine gold, okay, that money there are environmental impacts that are negative. In environmental economics, we call that negative externalities. But to break it down, um, an example of what we've done in Bapolo quite recently. The gold miners are there mining the gold, but damaging all the creeks so the people don't have place to even wash clothes. More like talk about drinking water. All right. Lands and mine we give a mining license.
Yeah.
The EPA is there to say you have your mining license. You're supposed to mine in the way that the water remain clean. Your mining should not destroy the water of the people. So when they talk about formulating environmental policy and regulation, that's what they're talking about. To say if you're doing this, there's a certain way you do it so you don't destroy the environment. If you destroy the water and pollute the water so that it can't be drinkable anymore, you destroy the lives of the people. But not only that, if you carry on large-scale agricultural concession like Golden Varonium or Sendabe at the time Sendabe was still operating, you clear massive amount of land for you to plant your palm plantation. But there are people who live in the areas.
Mhm.
At the EPA, you're supposed to prove to us that I'm going to clear the whole land, but this is how the people life going to be affected. This is how we're going to, we call that mitigation. This is a
Mhm.
strategy we're going to put into place so that the people have a better life. So that's the work of the EPA. So we regulate the environment so that the environment is safe for our generation today and generations to come. So companies use a lot of chemicals like mercury, like cyanide when they're doing mining. Those what procedure what the application procedure so that you don't overuse it so it destroy the water. So those are the work we do. But the earth is getting warm now. We can see that even they going here, the heat out in Liberia was not for fun. What is causing the heat? Well, when we burn gas, when we burn coal, those are using generators, around the world. It's called global warming. Those gases we're burning, they are very harmful. They go in the air. There's a blanket of air called the ozone layer. They are depleting it and melting the ozone layer. And they're the ones that's supposed to block the sun rays from hitting the earth so high. And so, because the ozone layer is being melted, it's being depleted, the sun is hitting the earth too high. And because of that, we're getting too much heat. In East Africa, in other parts of the world, they're not getting rain for a long time. The North Pole and the South Pole of the Earth, the ice, when you put heat on ice, it melts.
Yeah.
So the ice is melting, and so the wave of the ocean is increasing. As a result, West Point, Newtown, Buchanan, Greenville, they have been threatening because those are low-lying areas. The work of the EPA is to understand these things and
Mhm.
develop strategy as to what we can do about it. What can Liberia do to fight global warming? But how can Liberia work with the international community, like the UN agency responsible for this thing called climate change,
Right.
UNFCCC? So the part of the EPA work is to deal with these problems. Other than that, when you keep the forest standing, the quarry also absorb the carbon. So there's a new market that have developed today where countries will huge amount of forest standing. They say don't cut the trees down because the tree is helping us to save the environment.
Right.
So there's some set of commercial activities developed there called carbon trading. So the EPA then is responsible to be able to account for Liberia carbon and say, this is what we're doing about global warming. This is the carbon sink we have. We can sell some to the international community and get some money to develop our country. So
Hmm.
these are the work that the EPA does.
And on the line that I will ask you about blue carbon, but let's leave that one first.
Uh-huh. Yes, sir.
so,
Uh-huh.
so, 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 to do this, let's take for instance, uh, mines and energy will give the license. So
Yes.
EPA is working with different other groups. How does that work? How do you coordinate with the ministries that are responsible and agencies that that are responsible for these things? And I give an example of the mines and energy. How does that work look, and how is it going?
So part of it is that what Minister Wimapi and I have started doing. We started meeting, we started having discussion. In fact, one of the companies that are closed today is Western Cluster, is a collaboration between the Power Minister and the EPA. Because when that company was closed down, and then the license was issued on a road permit, then Power Work wrote the EPA and said, what the company status in terms of their permit and everything doing with the environment. We clearly gave the status of the company. Of course, they were in violation in many areas, and then the Power Work closed the company down from hauling the rock the way it's supposed to be doing. Or lens in mind, what the Chinese men that are on the run today call on the Song and Fen, they say they're calling the real minister in the past
Yeah.
government. They were in Babylon there just mining. So when our environmental inspectors went there and saw the mining activities, they sent me the report. We staged a press conference and actually did a PowerPoint presentation to show to the public the level of destruction of these companies. We closed a number of them down and find a number of them. Then Lens and mine went to check to see, did we ever give these people mining license? They behave in this way. They found out that the license they gave some of these people, even in the past government, was exploration license.
Hmm.
Exploration license is to go and check
Just check.
where you find the mineral. If you find
Window,
it, you come with this.
window shopping.
It's window shopping. You don't go
Mhm.
buy, but they have the exploration license. Then they go and start mining, and the mining in a very negative way. So Lens and Mine order issue a lawsuit, so they are on the run. So part of it is really us talking together. And now we are even forming a task force so that EPA inspectors, lands and mine inspectors, and sometimes even with immigration to accompany us to reach to the hard to reach places. So we are actively communicating right now. So that is bringing us together in terms of providing data information, because the process is you go to land and mine as a company. If you're getting your mining license, you get a mining license, but before you actually go mine, you come to EPA for environmental permit.
Hmm.
Before you get an environmental permit, we give you a list of qualified Liberian companies that do what we call environmental impact assessment. Environmental impact assessment is, I'm going to be mining gold here. Again, this mining, how are you going to affect the land and the water here? How are you going to affect the people here? But it's going to negatively affect the people. But this is a strategy I'm putting into place so that the issues will be mitigated. That
Give me an
environment.
example of that mitigation plan. let's say you go somewhere, I'm going to cut down, I'm going to mine here. Ever since my father was a boy, they've been mining in Bokonjire and they're still mining. So,
Mhm.
so when they say what can you put in place to mitigate whatever problem I saw, or I think it was Western Cluster, or one of those companies that were giving bottle of water because they have damaged the. Is that one of it? Or give me an example.
Yes, and I just want to make a little bit of judgment here so that I get better light. Um,
Okay,
so so let's take that mining for example. Okay,
right.
let's say gold mine. Let's take that one specifically. When you do gold mining, um, you dig a lot of hole, right? And is it community? Say for instance, even the Beer Mountain, a classical example for Beer Mountain right now. They're supposed to be moving to a community called Bangoma in
Mhm.
Grand Kidman. That area, the part of it they did was to submit a report to us that the communities in that area they have agreed and given their land for mining in their document. Then the EPA went there to ask the community members, is this true that you agree to give this land and you agree on these benefits? The first meeting failed. Community members said no. It was very hostile. EPA left and told Bear Mountain, we can't give you this permit because what you told us, we're going to check. The people resisted. There was a second meeting again. They said, we are ready. EPA went there. It didn't work. It took some time for them to get the people representative involved, to get some of their senators involved, to get their community leaders involved. The third time now they called the EPA, I think last week, I got a report that it was successful. The people agree. And based upon that, we're able to get a permit. That's just
Oh,
one of
oh,
our
oh,
social
oh,
conflict.
yeah, hold on now. When they say that people agree, are they the ones supposed to agree or not agree, even though they have, you know, is it within their right to agree or not agree for these things to happen?
It is in their right because we have a new land right law that
Mhm.
gave community members right to their land. The mineral resources on that land is for the government by the constitution.
Okay.
Government nationalized the mineral resource for the benefit of all Liberians. But the law say since the land belongs to them, and but the mineral is under the ground, it's not for them. Before you take the mineral, you have to get their free, prior, and informed consent. Free, prior, informed consent means you have to go and explain to them how you're going to affect their lives. If they get benefit, what type of benefit, they have to agree. If they don't agree, you cannot. If you do that, you're breaking the law. So that's the reason why. So they actually have to agree. If they don't agree, you can't really move forward. So that's about the social aspect. But in terms of the amount of chemical you're going to be using, or the
Mhm.
hole you're going to dig, what level you can go with that hole and what level you can go, the EPA will determine that in the permit. Is there a waterway system there? Do you need to monitor that water or you're not supposed to monitor that water? So when we get a permit, the permit has a set of conditions to say you can do this, you do this, you do this. You can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. You can't use this chemical. Then quarterly report will monitor their activities. The submit quarterly report will go and verify as to what the permit is saying. That's what they're doing. If they're not doing that, it's a recipe to find them and or close them down.
Good. We talk of mainly mining. You see, in other areas like, let's say, Simeco that is in the center. I don't know. I've been out of Monrovia for some time now. Simeco in that place. You see, LPRC, the refinery, and other factory, and people live there. So in terms of that, I know you have to work with certain ministries to also assess whether this is something that they can do right here. There was a report of someone who was, I think, the water thing they were doing, it broke down and all that. Would that be the commerce ministry you work with, or how does that work with companies that are operating, not mining, but even factories right there in the city and areas where people live?
Yeah. So now we work with commerce ministry. It depends on the sector. Sometimes we work with the National Investment Commission or the National Bureau of Construction. It depends the line ministry that having the key function with that particular development or that particular plain or like Simeco. We also have to give and monitor the activity of Simeco quarterly and give them license as well. They are manufacturing a cement, it has to conform to certain environmental standards, and they can do it over plus, and we give them permit with restriction of what they can do and what they can do. And some of those, yes, they are in the city center, but people live around it. And because people live around it, there are certain things that a company can do, they can do it as well. Are we getting everything 100%? Clearly, no. There are clearly challenges associated with what I'm explaining, you know, because it been an old age problem where people don't obey rules. It been an
Right.
old age problem where regulators corrupt, and then these things are not enforced. We are trying to clean those now. There are clearly challenges in between, but we are getting to a place where we will feel comfortable at some point.
How much teeth does the EPA have? I mean, because if you, it's like almost you should be everywhere.
Exactly.
Even the gasoline products, because they have impact if you burn these things, right?
Exactly.
And all kinds of things happening. So I really want to know, and this is new, as we said, and I don't know to what extent that is being backed. Even people, even those of us living here, going to build our houses and we're digging our wells and we have septic tank and all these kind of things, right? How much power or how much teeth does this EPA have to really carry on these things?
So EPA has a lot of teeth to back, but EPA need collaboration. EPA cannot do it by itself. We need collaboration, Minister of Justice. Take for instance, some of the collaboration we are having is that as of now, we have imposed about $965,000 fine on companies that are breaking the law. And so the LRA, at least with Honorable Double Jala, we talk about it briefly, informally send out a list when you impose the fine. LRA is responsible for revenue collection. Fines are potential revenue for the government. We will go after we'll go after it. I think Dr. Jala and his team are also doing that, which is a good thing. So that's the collaboration. Because if ourselves was to go and try to enforce it, it becomes a little bit overwhelming, a little bit difficult to do. But one thing is, if we impose a fine, we suspend your permit. So if you operate, you are operating illegally. And before we can lift that permit or issue you a new one, you have to come prove to us that you did pay the permit in government revenue, right? So that's a potential collaboration. Or right now, when we discover blind sand money and what the blind sand money people were doing all along the beach side, we find a number of them, close some of them down. Some of them even went, I'm told, at least, because the court hasn't taken on that, but some people say they went to the court and even sued the EPA. So there where collaboration is needed between
Right.
us and the Minister of Justice. As I speak to you, the EPA, we are having some court case now that we're dealing with, which I can't say much, but just to say because it's in court that we made a check, and this check was something around almost $67,000. The thing about that check is I needed to write the Minister of Finance and request the check to be deposited in EPA account and take the money from there and pay another company. But why? Why EPA account has to be used as a transitory account this way? No correct justification. Oh, we rent a car for the government during COVID-19 time, $1 million, 500,000, they've been paying this small, small. What a contract? No contract. So we couldn't pay that money. And that company has gone to court. And so we are now working with Minister of Justice to represent our interests. The EPA need to have the EPA law call for the establishment of environmental court.
Hmm.
Two set of court. There's one court, there's a second court, and after that appeal straight to the Supreme Court. We haven't been able to activate those. We have not been able to establish those courts. So when we establish those courts, many of the things, because as we enforce, you expect many, many lawsuits against the EPA. And the EPA too could sue a violator in a court. So the environmental code need to be established. But again, all the challenges we face with, we hope we'll look at that in the near future.
Good. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are in conversation with Dr. Emmanuel Yarkpawolo. He's the Director General of the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency. It's a turning position. So for the next 7 years, we're going to be seeing this face. Dr. Yarkpawolo, someone who has worked in government told me, he said, well, for every corrupt act that the sweeper will perform, that sweeper has linked with a corrupt supervisor somewhere who has enabled that. That corrupt supervisor has linked with a corrupt director general. That corrupt director general has some link with a corrupt assistant minister. That corrupt assistant minister has linked with a corrupt deputy minister, and on, all the way to the president. We were in all the way in Sino County where I was born. So people come there and they say, we want to do this. If the superintendent or whoever said no, they said, move from here. They go over you, right? Have you experienced any of that in the EPA? Because if Dr. Yarkpawolo, he studied this thing, you want to be tough, we just bypass him and go somewhere else. Is that something? Is that something that has happened, or anything that you're aware of?
Well, I think I have the philosophy that says, he who had dirty hands cannot bathe another person. It's a personal motto I carry with me. Your hand can be dirty, and you say you want to bathe another person.
I like that.
Or the Bible quote, I like that particular quote. Jesus' teaching was just very simple. When he told somebody, say, yeah, you want to take a sawdust from another person's eye. When you have a plank in your eye, and you want to take a sawdust from another person. He said, first, learn how to take the plank from your eye so you can see clearly before you help somebody. These little things, I carry them with me very deeply, and these are strong principles for me. And so, the way we fight corruption in the EPA in any part of our life, and anywhere we are, is ourselves not very corrupt. And so, that's something we are very strong on. And I also agree with that particular scenario you gave in terms of linkages when it comes to corruption. One person cannot corrupt the next. You can't really corrupt you alone. So corruption is not secret. Because when you do corruption, you actually doing it with somebody.
Yeah.
You corrupting somebody, or somebody is corrupting you. And you don't expect that information to be that confidential. You think that you're going to be. So when you open that floodgate and you see it going down the ladder, and people take advantage of those, because if you go through your assistant to corrupt, your assistant might take the corruption to a whole level. He's no longer afraid of you. You can't get ready to do anything to him because you know your this secret, right? So even he taking the corruption and corrupting for himself for his benefit, he can't really do anything. So the best thing is for yourself not to be corrupt. We have guarded ourselves against that very strongly, and we'll continue on that path. What are dealing with companies, what are dealing with employees, what are dealing with partners, everything is transparency. And that's why I started to talk to you about opening up even our account so that the senior management can look into it per week. And so it's difficult then for anybody to play game with it because now one person is saying it. So corruption is a big thing. And part of the way that we are dealing with corruption is those boxes I talk about. Because then people are speaking in those boxes and people are giving us intelligence in the boxes. And then we can be able to take those work and do reconnaissance and get down to what we're supposed to get to. I tried at the college I was leading before how to fight corruption in higher education institution. It was overwhelmingly successful. And so I get expanding it now in other areas. Yes.
Thank you. Liberia is currently party to at least 10 multilateral environmental agreements, which include the Convention on International Trade. I want to put that in the scrolling test.
Mm-hmm.
So all these conventions and all these things that we sign onto, and sometimes it appears like our EPA, the people there, is only based on just the international agreement and how much money they gave. Since you got there, how are you working with these based on these international agreements, and how are you working with these people? Because and the reason I ask that is most of the time what we see is really not what we want. It's not what we purpose to do. It's what based on some international agreements, which sometimes does not even take into account our special situation. How are you doing on that front?
So, and I like your analysis of it. International agreements, in more instances, they are beneficial also to the local country, but it depends how you use it. So, the way the process works is that if the EPA or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs sign an international multilateral agreement, it comes back to Liberia. It need to be ratified before it become effective in our country. Our lawmaker need to study the pros and cons, all the argument about it, how it fit the need of the country, then they ratify it. When they ratify the international agreement, then it began applicable now to Liberia. Then we need to enforce it because we have incorporated that into our laws. So we have a lot of those. We have a lot of those. I don't know what. Are you hearing any kind of background noise?
A little bit, but it's very minimal. It doesn't affect the rules. We can continue.
Okay. So I just want to make sure because folks are in the other room. So,
Yeah.
and if we take a short break, I'll appreciate it. Let me just tell them because they're saying a
We,
bit of distraction. Would that be good?
we're going to take that short break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Our country, sweet Mandela, our country, that God gave us this country. Tell Labira, that God gave us this country. We are calling on everyone here to come and pray for this country, Labira, Labira, God gave us this country.
Hi, my name is Addie Tyler from Pennsylvania, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
Welcome back to our one-on-one discussion with Dr. Emmanuel Yarkpawolo.
Yes, and we're talking about the multilateral agreements.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a number of those. And so when a country ratifies the multilateral agreement, the country has a responsibility in terms of what it's supposed to do. But there are also some international funding to support the implementation of this particular agreement. So it's two-way for. Sometimes the country is obligated to pay some money towards the implementation as an international agreement. So at the EPA, all kinds of small money in terms of some of them 3,000, 5,000, some people could 100,000 to various multilateral as Liberia annual contribution because Liberia had not been making this contribution, which to me is really disgraceful. We're going to
we always like cassava, right? Our hand always open.
Yeah, well, always you never give, you never give, you never give. We just take. And this is unacceptable. So as of next year, we'll start budgeting for Liberia contribution towards multilateral international agreement because this is important. You can't get taking, you never give. I don't think it's good. So, but some of the problem, the way that we don't sometimes benefit from it is the way sometimes it's structured, right? If the country is alleged or in reality a country is very corrupt, so when money coming for the country, it has to be implemented through a third party, what a UNDP, what a World Bank, some of the other project, it has to be implemented through them. What we do know is that when the money hits some of those poor account, they take 10% off as their overhead, which is the country money, the ticket, because they administer. Then they bring a lot more of consultants, most of the time foreign consultants. And then the project is implemented, but what the impact in the country, sometimes quite frankly, is negligible. You understand that? At the EPA, we are doing something different. We're trying to build our financial structure at EPA so the EPA is strong enough that it can be audited by any institution and strong enough to be able to hold money and implement project and report and be audited. So we are working on that process. We are also talking to our international partners to say, if you're doing this, we appreciate it. But the consultants, the assumption that Liberians don't have capacity, we want to let you know that Liberians do have capacity. If you bring your project, please, can we check in Liberia first? If we can find, can we check outside of Liberia for Liberians? The war scatter us around the country. And we have a lot of qualified people. They want to come home, but why are they coming to if they don't have any work to leave their work? They can't get come and sit down. If we cannot find, they will go outside now and bring international somebody non-Liberians. And because this is how Liberia will be built. It will be built by Liberians, and Liberians have to be in power. And that's sovereignty, and that's independent. Being independent politically, you don't have any economic independence. It's not. I think, Lucky, do we call that Mickey Mouse democracy or Mickey Mouse independence? You're independent politically, you have zero economic power. So we're trying to change that, at least at the EPA. And to a greater extent, we want to say the president, we are very grateful to him because each time we run the idea by him, he has no objection. He said, go and enforce the law. So he has our back. So I think we have a great opportunity to be able to move the EPA and the government forward through the initiatives.
Thank you. You when you got to the EPA, you started a 100-day deliverable, and part of that was the EPA decentralization plan. Let's talk a little bit about that and why is
Oh,
that
yes.
important.
It was so important because, again, the transitional document, we have to go there and see what was required for the EPA. It stated in the President 100-day deliverables, the EPO will begin the process for decentralizing the EPA. And so we took that very seriously. And I want to say thank you to, again, my deputy, Dua Bole, and the senior management staff of the EPA. Because at the time we developed a document to implement after I got the money support from the Swedish government and through USAID combined, I went to them and said, we have this decentralization process, but as you know, we are cash script. Can you help us? They were able to help to make some money available. They kept the money. We will do the procurement and send the stuff to the UNDP. UNDP will pay. That's totally okay for me. We just wanted to make sure our 100-day deliverables is complete. So through that process, we identified 4 hotspots counties where there were a lot of issues that EPA needed to have immediate eyes in those areas. So the county of Bapolu, the county of Riverside, Grand Kitman, as well as Monserrado. Because why is it that we're in Monserrado? Monserrado capital is actually Bentonville. So we were able to establish 4 offices in the counties. We negotiated with the county administrators to be able to use part of the county building. In more instances, they gave our room. We were able to clean it, set it up, put solar system, have computers there, sometimes a motorcycle there. Nearly all of them have motorcycles. And then because we did not have money to hire new staff, and we had a lot of staff in Monrovia, so we redeployed 4 person each in each of those counties as reassignment because we didn't have money to be able to hire new staff. They will be there until we raise enough money. We need to expand the area. We'll recruit people within those counties. They will train them, and then they will move on like a master trainers. So we did that, and it was successful. And that through that, we're getting the kind of report I talked about earlier from Bapolo, where we got a lot of report of violation because of our office assigned there and people working there. So our 100-day deliverable, it was 100% successful. We had a grand launch of it where we were happy. The vice president attended, and it was very good.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, we are in conversation with Dr. Emmanuel Yarkpawolo. He's the Director General of the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency. If you want to be a part of the conversation, please call the number that's on your screen, 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. Dr. Yarkpawolo, one of the sticky issues is you're taking over from a government. And most of the time, the way people approach it, either you go in there to see what the other people did wrong, so as to point it out as a way of scoring political point. Because I've heard, and seeing reports like that. What have you been able to, how do you navigate around this so that you won't be seen as witch hunting, but at the same time doing a complete review of system? One of the rumors we heard was the CDC fill up the EPA with partisan, right? So areas like EPA and other areas, they said that those areas are created to absorb partisans. And so these are the kind of news that we're getting. So when you get there and try to maybe fire people, like what we saw at the EPS and things like that, it always causes confusion. What has it been like at the EPA, and what are you doing about, doing the right thing, cleaning the system, but at the same time, doesn't appear like you are just after the people that were there before to tell them to say, hey, and you see the way you mess the player, now I'm cleaning it up.
So, a great question. The thing about it is that event leading to elections can be very divisive. Everybody trying to say to the voters, I'm the best. And this, the reason why I'm the best, I have to contrast myself with the opposition. So I'm the best. Everybody does that. When election is over, there's no need to carry on that now because that's not a good thing. To be honest with you, when you look at the president appointment and everything the president has done, you'll notice that he hasn't taken partisan politics into making sure only unity party all over the place. The president hasn't done that. Get look at his track record of appointment, everything he's done so far, and his saying and his behavior and everything. It's a unifier. We just go after that and learn from the president and try to implement some of the stuff there at the EPA. We did not fire anybody. We kept people in their position. Whether you CDC or this, I don't ask anybody what political party you belong to. I don't even ask anybody what tribe you belong to, Dennis. In fact, right after the war, make it as a personal philosophy. I never ask any Liberian what tribe are you. If you ask me what tribe I am, sometimes I laugh with it and tell you I said that's not important. Sometimes I don't, I just know it. It's the same thing. I, the EPA, we don't ask what are you, CDC. We see everybody as Liberians. Yet we institute a principle of accountability, both financial and system and productivity. If you're performing well, you are there. If you're not performing well, you need to be switched. Because what you're doing is just not performing well, but it's not like you don't do anything at all. So we place you to a place where you'll be able to perform. If you come to a point where you've done something that requires dismissal, is a crime you commit, will not hesitate. They will dismiss you. It's for a cause, not because you belong to a political party. There are good people in every political party. There are also some bad people in every political party. So at the EPA, the system we put it in place, you fall in line. Sometimes I leave very early. I get at the EPA around 7 o'clock. The other day I did it. The EPA has an annex building. It was morning, it was raining that Friday. I went straight to the annex building. I sat down there at 7 o'clock. You come, you sign. You come, you sign. I signed at 9 o'clock. I took all the signing sheet with me. I brought it to my office. They were there for a week. Anybody who come, you come and sign in my office. You come and sign in my office before you leave. Why? We got a tips that some employees were not showing up at work. Since we don't have digital yet, which we're planning to do, so we have a fingerprint signing in system. That's the one we're moving to, but we don't have that yet. Part of it is for me to go and demonstrate that you can do that. So those who will not fall in line with the kind of thing, they are the one they will be switched. But switching, it doesn't also mean that, as I said, it means that you don't have any qualification or you're performing badly. You might just be wrongly placed. And then we move you to a place where you feel much more comfortable and you can get productivity. That's what we're doing at the EPA. We're not trying to say, oh, the person did that. That's not our point at the EPA. The EPA is a regulatory institution. It should have professional people who are sometimes really less of partisan, right? The work we do is so important, and you can't take politics and put it in it. If you do that, you're creating problem. And so we're trying to guard ourselves against all these things to make sure we have a stable EPA. I think you're on mute, sir.
My last question before we bring in our callers is the uh, the government now is in consultation for the arrest agenda, has a national development plan, also the county development plan. Where does the EPA fit in that process, and what are you doing when it
So
comes to the arrest agenda?
I'm on the steering committee of the of the National Development Plan. The EPA is on the steering committee. I am on the steering committee. Quite recently, the president held a very important meeting already out of the country, so I sent my deputy on a dual body to represent the EPA. So the EPA work cut across all sectors of course. The EPA should be able to regulate a lot of, we're supposed to have environmental desks in each ministry for that matter. So our work is so important, but the EPA is the conduit to raise revenue for the government in terms of everything we do in the country with companies and everything, taxes, permit fee, all of that. But the EPA is uniquely positioned to tap into global funding. We had a global environment facility. It's a big funding that it gave the countries to be able to implement what they call nationally determined contribution. The nationally determined contribution is what the country is doing to solve climate change. And it normally border on poverty issues. So we need to have smart agriculture, much more productivity, a border on energy. Instead of having burning a diesel generator, we should be moving to hydro, solar, and the rest of it. So sometimes there are money from the UN that each country can compute and submit a proposal for. You know, that one we I talked about that earlier in brief. The one we're doing to be able to defend West Point from erosion is almost a $20 million project. That's one. Or almost a $10 million project at Sano. We're supposed to be doing similar work at Sino. Or the new one we're about to embark on is to be able to build a mineralogical center to be able to report Liberia weather at least on a daily basis.
That's right.
That's another 10 million. So the EPA is positioned to attract this funding. So the EPA point in the arrest agenda is let us then work with the government agency to make sure to have a strong development plan, and the EPA plan fit within that. Because the international funding, as I said, in more instances, they're not going to give money to government directly, but it's selected international NGOs to be able to administer the fund. So before you administer the fund, you will then pick up our agenda, you will pick up an item on the national development agenda and say, this is the one, this is what I'm doing, and you will develop proposal and will guide you through the process. So at the end, we can be able to evaluate and say our development agenda, the adverse agenda, these are the things we have done, and we can report back to the UN and say on our nationally determined contribution, these are the work we have done. So that's
Thank
why the EPAs are so much important in the development plan development, and we are there on the steering committee.
Thank you. You answer all my questions very well. So let me bring in other people to ask their own.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let me start with Mr. Thomas Kane. Hello, Thomas. Thomas is FOL. This guy public finance, economy like and governance like Kanye. Thomas.
Oh, wow. Good.
Yes, Dennis, thank you very much. So I was just finishing writing my question on the National Development Plan development when you asked the question. So I will just take it from where you stopped, because for thanks to the head of the EPA for joining you today, I think this is a very good progress. The point I wanted to make is that we are in the age of sustainable development. That means we want to grow the economy, but we want it to be socially inclusive, and we also want it to be environmentally sustainable. So that means these three pillars of sustainable development got to be hand in hand. So my question I wanted to actually ask, in which you asked the first piece of, was what is the EPA doing to make sure that the National Development Plan is environmentally friendly, or environment is mainstream into the National Development Plan? I think he already said that he's on the National Steering Committee, but I would want to take a step further to say that in addition to the National Development Plan, there are 15 county development plans that have been developed. You spoke about the decentralization of the EPA. Is the EPA present at the county level to make sure that these county development plans, the environment is mainstream in their development? There is also a public sector investment plan that is being developed. You spoke about the international funds that come from the national, that come from international organizations. are you tuned into the development of the public sector investment plan so that those funding streams that come from the environment angle, they are also mainstream into the public sector investment plan so that every investment that we are doing is environmentally sustainable? The second question I want to ask is that I think you and the public works minister were quite recently in Italy, right? Attending a global conference, I think that had to do with the environment and sorts of
Yeah, in Germany, yes.
My question I want to ask you is that are there conversations ongoing for Liberia to start to participate in the carbon market? If these conversations are ongoing, do you have any idea what is the policy framework that Liberia is putting into place to be able to enter the carbon market? Because we have the largest reserve of the Upper Guinea forest among all of the West African countries. So I think these are two basic questions I wanted to ask. And I think there are other people on the line. People on the line, I will just give chance for them to ask their questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you say that basic question there. And I like the question on the environment, right? Because here in the place we have 285 yellow machines. I want to know the EPA component for those yellow machines. Okay, respond to Thomas's question, and then I can bring in our next caller because it's too long.
Let me start, Thomas. Thank you. Very beautiful questions and great analysis. So let me start with the carbon framework, Thomas. We are on top of this. Yes, the Public Works Minister and others attended the Bonn conference last June. We're in Germany, Bonn. We're there for a few days. We are on top of the carbon market. We know all the information about it, and we know exactly what to do, and we are doing it. Let me tell you what we're doing. First, there have been a kind of bit of long-standing, at least in the past administration, in terms of what seemed to be a power struggle as to who lead carbon development in Liberia. So that we have been able to get with that. Because quite recently, the National Steering Committee that the House within the Climate Change Steering Committee that the House within the EPA, we had a good meeting with all of the stakeholders in Liberia, including the FDA. At that meeting, it was resolved that the EPA, since we are the nationally designated authority for Liberia, we should lead carbon development framework in Liberia. Forest carbon, soil carbon, renewable energy carbon, all the sort of carbon, blue carbon, all that stuff in the ocean. So at least in terms of administrative, we're able to get to that point. The FDA was charged to say, if it comes to the forest carbon, we'll work very closely with the FDA. The FDA is going to take a major lead in that when it comes to the forest carbon. So we managed to solve that conflict into power, what seemed to be like a power struggle between the agencies. We've done that part. So the next thing now is to develop the framework of the governing structure. And question like who owns carbon? Even though the community people have the land, but carbon is a new resource. It seems to be like an abstract concept. You don't see carbon, So who owns carbon? How should this market be traded? There's two broad carbon marketing in the world. There's a compliant market. There's a voluntary market. Which market Liberia should dive into? The compliance or the voluntary or both? Those questions need to be answered. So we are now in the process of developing that governance framework, benefit sharing. If carbon is sold for the forest in Grand, how would the community people who take care of that forest, how would they benefit? What comes to them? What comes to the national government? So all those structures need to be in. That's the governing framework. We are now developing the governing framework. That's one aspect. The other aspect is carbon accounting. You really got to know how much you have before you sell. There's a whole procedure in the UNFCCC to be able to verify how much carbon you have before even you get into the trading market. That process is one we are now into in terms of working with partners to be able to calculate our carbon stock in Liberia. Because if we complete that, we are expected to complete this between 12 to 18 months, not more than 24 months. These two parallel processes I'm talking about, they are now ongoing. So when we get that in place, that will get what we call readiness. They're going to get Liberia ready to trade into the global carbon market. Without those, we cannot. And that's why Dennis talked about blue carbon when this one that started in the old administration. That's why it's on hold. Because these processes are not in place, we can't sell carbon. And we also told the FDA, and that's one of the things that's so much good, that the EPA cannot sell carbon. We're not going to sell carbon. If the FDA is the one that doing the selling, or community or anybody doing the selling, we regulate the market, because that market has to be regulated again to conform to the environmental laws of Liberia. So you can't be the regulator and be the seller. So we're not going to sell carbon and stuff like that. So I think that helped to be able to solve some of the problems. So we are on good footing on those front. In terms of the county development plan, yes. So we have a technical team. Our planner is working with our group in terms of, the steering committee will meet once in the blue moon to look at everything that's going on, but we have technical people that are working on it. One I get back, I'm getting back tomorrow. I'll be getting some report, especially the one that you brought up in terms of how does the EPA fit within the county development plan as well, under the administration, such like decentralization of the EPA, where we have EPA structures in the county at the district level, district environmental officers in their functions, county environmental council, district environmental council in their functions in relationship to the local governance law and the implementation thereof. How so? There need to be linkages in those for greater understanding to fit in. So thank you, Brodo. Point out. We'll look into it in a lot more detail as we get back on the ground. But clearly, our technicians are doing some work towards this.
Thank you. And what he asked, how is the entire plan environmental friendly? I talk about the yellow machines.
Well, the plan is not at a conclusion yet.
Okay.
So I'm not, but we are trying as much as possible to get environmental friendly. It's going to be environmental friendly. You cannot bring the old technology now. The technology of development, we are moving heavily towards solar. We're moving towards hydrogen electricity generation and renewable sources. And also, the agriculture ministry, they finished with their plan already. Their plan is extremely smart in terms of the way that Dr. Nuta lay out, in terms of making Liberia self-sufficient in food production. So I think it's really difficult now to do any development that is not environmentally friendly or unsustainable. So it's all broader, and there are a lot of opportunity in sustainability that we are highlighting in the plan.
And let me bring in the next caller. But after that, I want to ask you about the flood in Monrovia, because after the flood, there are a lot of things happening there. I want to see what the EPA too is doing with that.
Yes.
Let me welcome Mr. Aliyu Kamara. Aliyu, you are live. Go ahead, sir.
Yo, now,
So listen, Dennis, I have never doubted Yarkpawolo. For as long as I've known him, he is a credible guy, he's a determined guy, he's a very focused guy, and he's dependable. But my only thing is that make your presence known in a way by telling the public what you are doing, because we do know the amount of things that you have achieved in such a relatively short time. So let's communicate it a little more so that the audience would know. My question to you is timelines and also functioning. The 4 locations right now that I already knew of, are they really functioning to the limit? Are they functioning below standard? That's one. Number 2, what time should we?
First question I wanted to get from you. Call 2 names. I didn't get it 2 names.
In the remaining counties, in the remaining 11 counties. But I'll just keep it at that. Thank you so much.
Aliyu, we want to get the 2 names you call. I didn't get them clearly.
Yeah.
You said finance?
Finance? I didn't know finance.
Yeah, well, I didn't get it. I didn't get the 2 names. So
what about the question?
What? You talking about the question?
Yeah, your question. Say your question again.
Okay, my question was, I was talking about in terms of function. The 4 headquarters that have been established, are they functioning to capacity? Are they limited? What are the challenges? What can we say about the functionality of those places that are being set up at this particular point in time.
You mean on the
of,
county level, those areas they set up in the counties?
Yeah, don't you set up in the county to monitor and to work in the county.
Okay.
I'm asking about how well are they doing and what are they meeting their capacity? If not, what are the challenges and what are the remedies? And I also asked him if to give me a timeline as to when those facilities will also be established in the remaining 11 counties.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Yes, so the as of now, EPA has present in 13 of the 15 counties. So only 2 more remaining. Because we met, we added 4, which beginning to 13. So that means we met 9 counties already with offices. The extent of functionality of the offices we met, we're still trying to work hard to get them function properly. They are not functioning like we expect them to function. The four we established, the newer one, we established them with certain rules and regulations. They are very functional, but still incapacitated because we transfer 4 staff from Monrovia office to each of the offices, 2 environmental compliance officers and 2 awareness officers. The awareness officers are the one that carry on a lot of environmental education. The compliant are the one that check with violators and what they're doing. So they came from Monrovia, but each of the counties, we need to have residents and citizens of the counties working in their county. So we need a transition. And 4%, the number is very small because the districts and some of the counties are very, very big. And then we have just 1 motorcycle assigned to each of those. And they need a lot more motorcycles. All right. So they are incapacitated at this point. So they are not at their full capacity. However, the training we gave them, the encouragement we gave them, the little bit of stipend we gave them, they are satisfied enough to go the extra miles. And that's the reason why they give us the kind of report that in our work to move faster in terms of finding companies and companies that carry on destruction. These are the work of our inspectors and our awareness officers. So we are very grateful to them, and we're hoping that we can provide a lot more opportunities for them in the future. So only 2 more countries now we don't have president in, and we're looking for money to get president in those. But having president there is not just a thing, how functional they are. So we're thinking about having regional offices so that we decentralize the activities of the EPA. Because like granting a permit, all that stuff is done in the Monrovia office. It's very difficult and overwhelming. One would not come from Hapo all the way where a company had to reach Monrovia. We want to have maybe a regional office in Banga so that we'll be able to handle the same processes. But we'll do that in electronic form so that there's some transparency to the process. So, but very, 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 very good questions in terms of that. And the second question was about the challenges. Of course, the challenges, I get what I talk about, funding challenges are there and how to get these offices much more functional. It's mainly border on funding. And that's it in terms of getting them really and getting them staffed properly. It border down on limited funding. However, limited funding is Liberian problem. So I can only talk about it in brief, but I don't pay attention to this stuff because I have learned how to work with small resources I have, how efficient I can be with it. I have learned how to do it, so I don't cry for money too much. I try to make means with what I have, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you. Dr. Yarkpawolo, I promised to talk about the flooding, right? Because this flooding is very frequent now, they're very devastating. And anytime a flood takes place, they leave behind contamination, diseases. These floods carry sewage water. We already know our sewage issue in, toxic chemicals and all that kind of stuff. Where's the EPA? And this recent flood, I really have not, maybe I'm not following too closely. I've not heard from the government as to, what is being done, what is put into place to avoid that, what is causing it, and what help the people needing. I saw people in the church where they were just swimming in the dirty flood water and said, nothing can stop us from worshiping. And I felt very sorry. Is the EPA part of this whole flood thing too?
Well, the EPA is really the center of it, to be honest with you. But when the flood is taking place, something has been done. The National Disaster Agency, they've been doing something about resettlement, in terms of intervention. To be honest with you, Dennis, the flooding situation is out of hand and is a national disaster. It should call for a national emergency. To be honest with you,
And I don't see that. I'm not putting the
so
I don't see that.
yeah. So here is the problem.
Mm.
We appear before the Senate and the House of Representatives, and we talk about these issues. One is due to global warming. Other parts of the world will get heavy rainfall than usual. Liberia is experiencing that, so clearly that's something we can talk about. Part of the problem is the various seasons we have in Liberia. We do have long dry season and long rainy season. And then, as you agree with me that in Monrovia, and we are there in January and February, some areas are sandy, beautiful, but not until July, August that they are completely submerged. So people take advantage of the long dry season ignorantly and build flood-prone areas. And when the rainy season comes, they are very surprised. That one of the issues there. Another issue is overcrowding of the city. Monrovia is where you find a little bit of light. There where you find schools. There where people able to hustle on the street and get small money. There is not much long civil war, and the city is overcrowded. The city is overcrowded. So as a result, people have to build in places. And where do they build? They build makeshift buildings in the swamp. They fill in the wetland and those areas. So if all the water is supposed to sink, you fill in the area the water is supposed to sink, the water will have to go somewhere and will have to go into homes. It began a big poverty problem. What are we doing about it? We have analyzed the situation. We made a presentation where the city mayor of Monrovia, Mr. Shafa, was present. He was impressed. We even gave the projection of the city of Monrovia. If this situation continues in the next 25 to 50 years, what's going to be happening? It's scary. So for that reason, we are not trying to form, it has to be an interagency approach. We work with the public work and demolish some structures. Some structures have to go because they are clearly blocking the drainages and the waterways. And we work with the rest of the agency. Plastic, gotta deal with plastic because the plastic bags are the one that are used as trash and they clog the drainages as well. Too many plastic clogging the drainages, and then the water does not move freely in the drainage, and we see. So
Mm.
it's a problem, but we are actively discussing it with each interagency approach to
Thank you.
see whether we can be able to do something about it. We're not leaving it.
Thank you.
We currently working on it actively, but it's a big problem.
Education is key. I don't know what the EPA is doing with educating the people, right? And even
It's
having these things in our curriculum. You know, let's talk to me on that front of educating people where to live. You know, the impact of these things because of there was a concession many years ago. They went to my town and they talked to the people. The town chief signed on to their operation, you know, because they're giving you a wristwatch, right? So if the people are not informed, if they are not educated, this problem is going to continue. You know, they look at there's this social development fund now that everybody is going for. So even at the peril of your life, I have a family member who was in a mining area and they say they are developing skin cancer. He died. Let's talk about the education from EPA perspective.
education is bigger part of our work. We are doing education on two different fronts. So at the EPA, we have awareness officers and conservation officers. They go into communities, RPA system, lot of community meetings to educate people about their environmental issues. We're taking one step further, working with our intersectoral department to establish what we call environmental clubs. The community environmental clubs are very important. We're looking for funding to move this forward because this brings community members together to discuss about environmental issues in their locality, where to dump their trash and how to get rid of their trash. If somebody wanted to build in a swamp in their community, they will be the first guy to say you can't build here because we'll get flooded. So that one way we're doing to establish what we call community environmental clubs, and we're looking for community volunteers to come together. That's one way we're doing it locally. Another way we're approaching it is school environmental clubs. to be able to have environmental clubs in the various schools so that the students learn about environmental issues, practice in the school, and hopefully carry. In fact, there's a fellow, his name is Tony Arautan. He lead a small NGO. He's doing very well with younger kids in elementary school. I attended one of their programs. They are very good. We're looking for some funding to support. The other one is the next one is what we're starting with. I think the coming Tuesday we might have the first edition. Mr. John Colley chatted with me today. We have had some discussion as to how to have big forum on the LMDI, John Colley and his media group, to be able to amplify. Actually, John had volunteered to have the first 2-3 edition of his own funding. He is very passionate about the wetland degradation and how we need to carry a lot of information to the public so people stop this. So the coming week we'll be embarking on that. The other one you talk about, we have a specific example from Greenwich there. Senator Thomas Yaya Nimle wrote the EPA, invited the EPA to say why is it that a lot of degradation. He was particular about mercury, that the content of mercury in the water system in Greenwich is too much. If he gives some scientific analysis, a very smart man in the way he approached the issue. So we went there and we had a meeting with him and we explained everything about mercury and what we are doing about it. One thing we are doing about it is that to ratify the one convention. Always I forgot what the name, but is Nima Mata, something like that. I don't know get that name very correctly, but it's a convention. Liberia, up to the point, had not ratified that convention. So when you ratify the convention, I think that process is ongoing. Minister of the Foreign Affairs currently actively now in the process of ratification, because what they will do for us, the convention, there will be money. When we ratify the convention, we put stop to the use of mercury. So mercury will not be used in Liberia anymore. But then we'll get some funding from the convention. Our water system that are contaminated would be how do we clean the water and restore them? So that one thing we're talking about. But the senator says something very important. He said, I appreciate your work. During my break, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each town to educate these people about the impact of the mining activities. Because one of the challenges we face is that when you even go to the community and try to point the miners and bring them to book, sometimes community members resist the same thing you're talking about. Because they're getting small money, maybe every week, every month. Oh, you government, we've been here in poverty, they haven't done anything for us. They may have trying to get a small thing. Don't bother him. So they shield the people. Not knowing the kind of damage these people are causing them. So public education is extremely important. And we're putting some, again, our budget, we didn't get what we wanted, but we're working with some. We really want to take the airway, the community radio stations, and really go full blast on this whole thing in terms of public awareness. It's a very important part and key part of our work.
Thank you so much, Doug. At this time, I really appreciate your time jumping on the call at such a short notice. Let me get your closing as we draw down the curtains. Anything that we didn't cover that you want to hit on, please feel free to do so as you close.
I think I want to emphasize to Liberian in the diaspora, we are missing on some opportunities here. One, no country is ever developed by foreigners. Country citizens develop country. They don't develop their country when they are impoverished. It's not possible. Country citizens raise money, acquire wealth, and build properties and create employment and supervise the employment. Our economy is in foreign hands. So Liberia, think about going back to Liberia to invest. You will say, oh, the country is corrupt, blah, 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 blah. I agree with you. That's the point. But can you give up then? You can't give up. When there's a problem, you try to solve the problem. Like I told a group of audience here yesterday in Minnesota, everybody complained that, oh, when we send our money to build housing in Liberia, family members, they aim my money. This story is pervasive all in the Liberian community. Oh, but problem is a business opportunity. Can few people get together, establish a construction company? They are your brothers who can build in Liberia, but Nobody is organizing them. Can you get an institution and sell yourself in the US and say, you know what? You want to build horse in Liberia? Come to our company. We'll build it for you. You don't have to go give money to any family person to eat your money. That's a business opportunity. How many Liberians are willing to get in these things? I told the people in Bon County Citizen, the new market is constructed in Banga, but that market won't do environmental impact assessment, no trash collection. That's a business opportunity. Can you establish a trash collection company? Let the marketeers be your first customers. What's about that? Even each of them paying $1 per week, when I did the calculation, it's about $264,000 US per year. That you can create employment. But not only that, you can bring international partners, they will give you trucks, all those things. We will develop the regulation. We will help with the landfill where to dispose of the garbage. Liberian, please think big. Go back home and really try to do something. Don't be frustrated and don't give up on Liberia. If we do that, the development we're looking for, we'll get it. But Dennis, thank you, especially to focus on Liberia, everything you do. We do appreciate all of your work. Let us work together. We can't give up on Liberia. There's a bright future for the country. Thank you.
Definitely. And thank you so much for coming. And if I become superintendent of Sino County, rest assured, EPA will have a strong base in Sino.
Thank you. I pray for it, sir.
Yeah. Right. On that note, thank you for coming. I want to thank our viewers, those who are watching now and those who will watch later. At this time, we're going to close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night and God bless you.
We are